Can Conor McGregor make the necessary changes to beat Dustin Poirier? And this match, I will tell you, I spent a lot of time breaking down fights, guys, but it comes from the X's and O's. It comes with the punch followed by the kick. This guy's southpaw, this guy's orthodox. It always comes to that. But the one thing that I know, because I had done it, and the one thing that fellow fighters know, is the X's and O's that everybody sees at home are 3 and 4 and 5 down the list. It's going to start with grit. It's going to start with toughness. It's going to be followed by heart. Conditioning is something that you can weaponize and make the other guy fold. I mean, it's one of these things where when you bring it to the audience, you're always talking about the jab followed by the cross. But it's a different mindset known as an intangible. However, if the audience can't see it, you can't entertain anybody by talking about it. So we never do. But I bring this into you because this fight is going to be a physical battle. It is not going to be a mental test. It's not. We have seen these guys both on highs, both at lows, both trying to come up, both that have already made it. Both have fought for championships, and now they're going to this super huge fight where there's no belt even on the line. This is not a mental battle. This is going to be physical. So can Conor make the adjustments? And you've got to start step one. And we saw this with our own eyes, but we also will listen to Conor. We'll take Conor's opinion for it. The calf kick. Problematic. Can Conor stop that? And there's only a couple of ways that you can defend a calf kick. One, you could just bring it up and block. If you guys don't know what bring it up and block means, think about what Weidman did to Anderson Silva the night that Anderson had that accident with his leg. That was called a check. Weidman was able to bring his leg up, turn it to where the shin was coming, cause damage back to the opponent. If you defend a kick correctly, you will hurt your opponent far greater than if you landed a kick effectively. Defense to kicks can be not only fight ending, they can be career ending. And again, just as example, think of what happened to Anderson. He was the offensive man, Weidman on defense. Right? I mean, you see what happens. Kicks are very dangerous for this reason. You have to set them up perfectly. One thing that makes a calf kick so compelling is even if the person checks it, it does less damage to you. 101, and stay with me here. You want to kick a guy in the thigh. And when I say 101, I'm talking about when kicks were shown to the world of mixed martial arts done in 1995 by a man named Marco Ruas. It's the thigh. Now, if you'd studied kickboxing before this, you would have already known that trick. I'm speaking purely to mixed martial arts. When Marco Ruas showed this to our sport, it was the thigh. Everybody that came along after Marco Ruas, all the way to Chuck Liddell, just to name a great striker, all went for the thigh. Benson Henderson is the one that brought this technique to the calf, to the world of MMA. Sure, Benson grabbed it, gloried kickboxing, something along these lines. But the calf kick is totally different. It doesn't hurt your opponent as bad. However, your risk versus reward is much higher. Much higher. If the guy defends it, yes, offensively, you're not going to hurt him as bad in one kick as if you hit him in the thigh. However, his ability to defend it is going to be greatly different. Let me tell you about a night. Tim Sylvia became the champion of the world. He became the champion of the world because Rico Rodriguez threw a kick. And while Rico was on one foot, Tim threw one straight down the middle and knocked him out. That's the other defense to a kick. I've now shown you both. One defense is what Weidman did, and the other is to throw a straight right down the middle. Either one of those will get the guy to stop kicking. I want to bring this to you, though. I want you to be aware, in case you saw Conor got hit with those kicks and you're thinking, well, it's only 4 months in between fights and he's not going to be able to build a skill set good enough. No, excuse me. There's two things he can do. There's no other things created. He can check the kick or he can respond to the kick. There's no other technique that's even created. The question becomes, how was Poirier setting it up? And that's not a question for us to answer. That's a question for Conor. That's the one thing Conor's going to have to learn. How did he set this up? How did I not see this coming? What did he put in front of me? Was it a feint? Some guys will say something to you. Hey, boom, make you look, right? Some guys will feint. Some guys will hide it. Couple of punches, kick comes last. You don't see it coming. You're too busy. But there's only so many things you can do, okay? It's like music. There's only so many notes, and you don't have to all of a sudden get a whole lot better or even be the smartest guy in the room. You do have to identify how did he set this up? Why was I not seeing this kick come? It's not about the damage of the kick or the mere fact that you don't want that kick to come. How did it come? Because nothing in this sport will come without something before it. Nothing. No punch is ever thrown without something. Now, that's your job as coaches to sit down and break down each and every opponent that you could possibly have, because they're all different. There's a number of things that you can do. But guy's going to throw he will always throw a jab in front of it. By example, he will always take one step this side before he throws it. He'll always move his shoulders before he throws it, or something along these lines. You've now got to figure out what it was. And as far as Poirier doing that to Conor, it's going to be a little bit tough, because Poirier broke that weapon out exclusive, almost exclusive to that night. So things get a little bit trickier on McGregor's side. When Coach Kavanaugh sits down to break this down, he doesn't get to bring up Poirier's last 10 fights and figure out all the opponents he did it to, in addition to his pupil, Conor McGregor. No, Coach Kavanaugh's going to have to break down one fight of which he has one round to identify one technique. It's hard. It's hard when you want to talk about, can Conor flip the script? And Conor's talking about doing things mental, putting himself back in trying less comfortable positions and situations to try to get a required outcome. This isn't mental. Conor didn't quit. Conor got knocked out. Now, the only reason Conor's face was there to get knocked out is because his leg was dead. Yes, I'm sure mentally he started to fade. I'm sure when Conor sees it, he'll go, well, Chael, I was actually starting to fade. I understand that he found himself in a fight that was harder than he thought it was going to be. And whenever that happens, things unravel very quickly. However, your opponent's feeling whatever you're feeling. All the anxiety that you have about, man, I just want tonight over. He's feeling it too. Who can stay in here longer? Conor wasn't able to stay in. He wasn't able to stay in because he couldn't protect his face. He couldn't protect his face because he didn't have his feet under him anymore. And I want to go back to an example that I referenced a moment ago, which was the night Tim Sylvia knocked out Rico. Rico threw a kick. Okay, if you guys haven't seen this, but if you have and just didn't know what was aware, this was a very important night and a very important match for you to study and know about. Rico, arguably, particularly at that time, was better than Tim. Rico was a very good fighter. Tim, very long, very tall, hit real hard. When Rico came out and led with a kick, and all Tim did is throw a straight down the middle, that is something that is a lot of work. I'm making it sound so he threw a kick and he did this. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of timing. You have to know exactly where your opponent's at. And when he does it, problem for Rico, okay? There's nowhere to go when you're throwing a kick. One foot is now on the ground. There's nowhere to go. So when you take the risk to throw a kick, your entire body is going to be stationary. There's things you can do, starting with the setup, followed by stepping outside. Third, keeping your hands up. A number of things that athletes who get knocked out don't do, but there's ways to protect it. So there's still reasons that you should throw a kick, but for the most part, kicks are secondary. In the world of kickboxing, where you can go out and kick and box, the sport of kickboxing's organizing body had to put a rule in place that you must throw 3 kicks per round or you could lose a point. Why? Because kicking isn't very effective in a fight. So guys would go into kickboxing and throw no kicks and win fights. You do have to learn how to defend them. You do have to learn what those looks are like, but the hands are far greater tool than kicks, proven to the point that kickboxers quit throwing kicks and only started to throw them once a rule put in place said that they had to. I want you to be aware of that, because kicks do need to be secondary. And yes, there's an exception to every rule. John Jones, with that reach, can come off, start a fight with a kick. The general rule, though, and the general rule that does need to be observed and be followed, is you finish with a kick. Start with the hands, finish with a kick. Don't walk in and start with a kick. That was the mistake that Rico made. Now, I'm only bringing this to you because before you think there has to be a massive sit-down and meeting of the minds for Conor McGregor to learn how to stop that kick. Good news if you're Team McGregor, there's only 2 things you can do. And of those 2 things, you only need to do one of them. But you can stop that kick in its entirety. You can stop that threat from ever happening if you can just figure out what the setup was. And it's going to be hard. Conor's in a real position here. He's going to have to really close his eyes. He's going to have to really take himself back and try to remember that moment, or he's not going to be able to identify it. He's not going to be able to identify it. He can sit with his coaches. His coaches can say, okay, we think that we found. And they might be right, but Conor's going to have to participate here greatly. And I will just share with you, a lot of times when you are in a physical battle that isn't a mental battle, you'll get it wrong. I have a match. I'm just going to personalize, throw myself in this. But I had an opponent named Ethan Bosch. And I could beat Ethan Bosch. I have beaten Ethan Bosch. But Ethan Bosch could whip me, too. He could whip me. In the world of wrestling, there's something called a technical fall. Technical fall is essentially the mercy rule, where you get so many points ahead, the referee goes, let's just stop. There's no point in going on, let's just stop. I could beat Ethan Bosch, but Ethan Bosch could technical fall me. But he did it with one move. And I knew I was going to see Bosch at the Olympic trials. So my way of getting ready for Bosch, whose one move was a front headlock, my way of getting ready for Bosch was to wake up earlier and run further. Was to stay after and lift weights. I was looking to get better and tougher the wrong way. This was a situation, Chael. You have to stop one technique. So instead of running and instead of lifting, how much time today did you spend on defense of the one technique that's caused you problems with this one athlete who you know you're going to see in the semifinals for the Olympic trials? None. I spent none. I spent no time breaking down that technique. I spent no time looking at footage. I spent no time talking to experts. I spent no time on the mat on this one technique. I knew I had one technical issue, but I thought if I got stronger and in better shape and could go harder, I could beat him. Why? Why would I think that? Why would I think that? That doesn't make any sense. I'm having a technical issue with the technique, and I'm solving that by running? I'm solving that by doing overhead press. What would I possibly have been thinking? Where was my mom? Where was my dad? I mean, there was people, somebody should have come to me and said, Chael, this guy's going to front headlock you and he's going to choke you to death and score a ton of points. Work on that position. It never crossed my mind. It didn't even cross my mind after the Olympic trials when I did get put in that position. When he did do it to me, it was about 15 years after the fact that I look back on that and go, why didn't I learn how to defend a front headlock? If my problem with Bosch is a front headlock, why am I traveling all over the world working with all of these guys, perfecting my arm drag and my duck under and my gut wrench? I have a front headlock issue waiting in front of me in the semifinals. Why am I not working on the front headlock? If you know there's a problem, go to the problem. If the guy's got his hands locked around you and you can't move, the lock is the problem. If a guy's got his hands locked around you and the lock's the problem, why are you smacking him in the head? The head isn't the problem. The problem is the lock. Go to the lock. Go to the problem. I bring this to you because Conor's talking about he's going to lock down. He's going to do things differently. That's for mental. This isn't going to be a mental battle. This is a physical battle. Can McGregor stop the kicks? Can he stop the kick so he's light on his feet? So that he has motion, so that he can get his head out of the way, so that he can get that left hand firing. And it's always tough, right? You never know, do I need to focus on the mental side and get a little tougher? Do I need to focus on the physical side and get a little bit more strategic? It's always tough to know. It's very tough to identify. I am submitting for you that. This is a physical battle. Conor's going to need to learn how to stop that kick. There's only two techniques to stop that kick. In the history of time, only two has ever been created. He can lift that knee or he can respond down the middle. Even better than that would be to avoid it coming in the first place. So now he's got to ask himself, what was the setup?